Every night after 60, your body enters a critical circulation window. Gravity shifts fluid from the lower legs toward the torso. Veins contract, muscles assist, blood return. In a well-nourished system, this nightly reset happens smoothly. But even when minerals like magnesium, potassium, and calcium are adequate, another factor quietly sabotages circulation: protein imbalance. When the body lacks sufficient circulating proteins, particularly albumin, fluid leaks from blood vessels into surrounding tissues. That subtle leak creates heaviness, tightness, and swelling in the legs that many seniors dismiss as normal aging. I've studied vascular reports, protein metabolism studies, and age-related edema patterns, and one pattern consistently appears in older adults. Inadequate protein status worsens nighttime fluid retention, even when mineral intake is sufficient. If you're over 60, comment your age below, because this imbalance is almost never measured, yet it silently drives swelling and leg discomfort. Let's look at why protein imbalance makes nighttime leg heaviness worse. 1. Albumin holds fluid inside blood vessels. Albumin is the most abundant protein in blood plasma. It creates an osmotic pull that keeps fluid inside the vessels, rather than letting it leak into surrounding tissue. When albumin levels drop even mildly, his containment weakens. Blood vessels may appear normal, minerals may be adequate, but fluid still seeps outward. Seniors often notice swollen ankles, puffy feet. Over time, repeated nightly fluid leakage increases pressure in the tissues and worsens discomfort. Adequate minerals alone cannot compensate. Without albumin's pull, veins struggle to maintain fluid inside the circulation. The result is a subtle but persistent increase in leg heaviness. Albumin also helps transport hormones, minerals, and medications. Low levels compromise these functions, which can indirectly impair vascular tone and kidney signaling, further amplifying nighttime fluid retention. But the impact of low albumin goes beyond simple fluid leakage. Albumin works continuously to maintain the delicate balance between the blood and surrounding tissues, a balance known as oncotic pressure. When this pressure weakens, even minor shifts in posture or gravity can push fluid from vessels into the interstitial spaces of the lower legs. Over the course of a day, this cumulative leakage becomes most noticeable in the evening, when veins and lymphatic vessels are relying on subtle muscular contractions to return fluid upward. Even small, seemingly inconsequential drops in albumin levels can translate into measurable swelling that minerals alone cannot correct. Albumin deficiency also reduces the blood's ability to transport essential signaling molecules that regulate vascular tone. Hormones such as nitric oxide precursors, vasopressin, and even certain stress-related hormones bind to albumin for transport. Low albumin levels impair delivery of these compounds, meaning that blood vessels may fail to relax properly at night, contributing to the feeling of heaviness or tightness. Kidney function is similarly affected. Without enough circulating albumin, the kidneys receive weaker cues, prolonging fluid retention in the legs and feet. Additionally, albumin acts as a buffer for toxins and free radicals. When albumin levels are insufficient, these compounds accumulate in the blood and surrounding tissue, subtly damaging vessel walls. Microinflammation can develop, stiffening vessels, and making them more prone to leakage during nightly fluid shifts. Seniors may notice that their legs feel heavier, even after minor activity, and swelling worsens as the day progresses. The liver produces albumin, and aging or chronic health conditions can limit its ability to synthesize enough protein for circulation needs. Without proper restoration of albumin levels through nutrition or medical support, nightly fluid shifts continue to create heaviness, puffy ankles, and persistent discomfort, regardless of mineral sufficiency. Restoring albumin is not an overnight fix, but with consistent dietary protein and targeted support, the osmotic balance can improve. Veins regain their ability to retain fluid, and the nighttime heaviness many seniors experience gradually diminishes. 2. Low protein impairs muscle support for circulation. Muscle mass naturally declines after 60, and protein deficiency accelerates this loss. Calf muscles act as secondary pumps, pushing blood upward with every contraction. Even when lying down, subtle tone supports circulation. When protein intake is insufficient, muscles weaken and lose coordination. Even if magnesium and potassium are adequate, the calf pump no longer works efficiently. Blood pools in the lower legs, pressure rises, and fluid escapes into tissues. This explains why seniors often report heaviness, stiffness, or a weighted sensation in the calves at night. The combination of low albumin and weakened muscle tissue creates a compounding effect. Over time, this leads to chronic nightly congestion that minerals alone cannot prevent, but the impact goes deeper than simple weakness. Skeletal muscles rely on adequate protein, not just for size, but for the structural integrity of fibers, contractile proteins, and the connective tissue matrix. When protein intake is low, these structures degrade, leading to smaller, less responsive muscle fibers. This reduction in pump efficiency is especially noticeable at night, when gravity is no longer aiding circulation and the body depends on muscular tone to prevent fluid from pooling in the lower legs. Low protein also compromises mitochondrial function within muscle cells. Mitochondria produce the energy required for repeated contractions, and without enough amino acids, their activity declines. This energy deficit means that even small subconscious muscle contractions that normally support circulation fail to occur, or occur inconsistently. The result is a sluggish venous return and prolonged tissue pressure, contributing to that familiar heavy, fatigued sensation in the calves and ankles by evening. Additionally, protein deficiency can impair neuromuscular coordination. Amino acids are precursors for neurotransmitters, such as acetylcholine, which regulates muscle contraction. When these precursors are limited, nerve signals become less precise. Seniors may notice subtle twitches, cramping, or restless sensations, reflecting both reduced muscle tone and impaired signaling. Even with sufficient magnesium or potassium, the circulatory system suffers because the muscles, the secondary pumps, cannot execute their role. Blood pooling increases local pressure in the veins and capillaries, encouraging fluid to leak into tissues. The heavier the legs become, the less likely movement occurs to help clear the fluid. Nighttime congestion worsens, leading to persistent swelling, tightness, and discomfort. Consistent dietary protein, ideally distributed throughout the day, strengthens calf muscles, improves contraction efficiency, and works in tandem with albumin and minerals to reduce nighttime fluid accumulation. Paired with gentle evening movement, stretching, or calf exercises, adequate protein intake ensures that the circulatory pump functions even during rest, preventing the nightly heaviness and stiffness that many seniors experience. 3. It disrupts kidney fluid regulation. Protein imbalance also affects the kidney's ability to manage fluid. Albumin helps regulate oncotic pressure, which influences how kidneys filter sodium and water. Low albumin can trigger the body to hold on to sodium and water as a compensatory mechanism. Even with proper magnesium or potassium levels, the kidneys may retain fluid, worsening nighttime pooling in the legs. Seniors may wake with swollen ankles or a feeling of stiffness, despite having rested all night. Over weeks and months, this repeated retention compounds tissue congestion and increases pressure inside small vessels. Restoring protein balance helps the kidneys respond appropriately, allowing fluid to be excreted efficiently during sleep. But the effects of protein deficiency on kidney function extend beyond simple fluid retention. Albumin serves as a key regulator of plasma osmotic pressure, which creates the pull that draws water back into the bloodstream from surrounding tissues. The kidneys detect this altered balance and interpret it as low blood volume. As a result, hormonal responses are triggered, particularly the release of antidiuretic hormone, ADH, and activation of the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, RAAS, which instruct the kidneys to conserve sodium and water. In addition, protein deficiency affects the filtration barrier of the kidneys itself. The glomeruli, tiny capillary networks responsible for filtering blood, low protein intake can weaken these structures, slightly altering filtration efficiency. Even subtle changes can disrupt the delicate balance of fluid, electrolytes, and waste removal, making the body more prone to fluid shifts that accumulate in the legs overnight. Energy metabolism within kidney cells also depends on amino acids. Over time, this combination of reduced oncotic pull, altered hormonal signaling, and impaired renal responsiveness creates a persistent pattern. Even minerals like magnesium, which support vascular relaxation and muscle function, cannot fully counteract these effects if protein imbalance persists. Correcting protein intake through high-quality sources like lean meats, fish, eggs, legumes, and dairy restores albumin levels and strengthens renal regulation of fluid. Adequate protein ensures that kidneys can properly filter sodium and water, allowing fluid to be excreted efficiently during sleep. 4. It increases inflammatory signaling in tissues. Low circulating protein can amplify low-grade inflammation in blood vessels and surrounding tissue. Albumin carries anti-inflammatory compounds and binds toxins that would otherwise irritate the endothelium. When albumin is low, inflammatory markers rise, stiffening vessel walls and narrowing microcirculation pathways. Even if minerals like magnesium support vascular relaxation, the vessels remain partially tense due to inflammation, slowing fluid return. This creates that familiar feeling of tight, heavy legs in the evening, often accompanied by mild swelling. Protein status also influences the glycocalyx, the protective layer lining vessels. A weakened glycocalyx allows fluid to leak more easily, compounding nighttime heaviness despite adequate minerals. But the influence of protein deficiency on inflammation goes deeper. Albumin serves as a transport protein for many anti-inflammatory molecules, including antioxidants and hormones that dampen vascular stress. When albumin is insufficient, these protective compounds are reduced in circulation, leaving blood vessel walls more vulnerable to oxidative damage. Over time, the endothelium, the inner lining of the vessels, becomes more reactive, responding excessively to minor stressors or pressure changes. This heightened sensitivity slows fluid movement from the legs back to the heart, creating persistent evening heaviness even when magnesium and potassium levels are adequate. Inflammatory signaling also interacts with the microvascular system. Tiny capillaries in the calves and ankles are particularly sensitive to cytokines and other inflammatory mediators. Low protein levels allow these signals to rise unchecked, causing capillaries to constrict or become leaky. Fluid that should remain in the vessels escapes into surrounding tissue, increasing pressure and the sensation of fullness. Seniors may notice subtle swelling around the ankles, tightness across the calves, or even mild puffiness in the feet by nightfall. Furthermore, the glycocalyx, a delicate gel-like lining of blood vessels that regulates permeability and fluid exchange, is heavily dependent on protein integrity. Albumin and other plasma proteins help maintain its structure and resilience. When protein levels drop, the glycocalyx weakens, becoming more permeable. This allows water and small solutes to leak more readily into tissues. Even with adequate magnesium to relax vessels and sufficient potassium to support muscle contraction, the weakened glycocalyx means fluid escapes more easily, intensifying nighttime leg heaviness. Correcting protein intake strengthens both the glycocalyx and overall anti-inflammatory capacity of blood plasma. Adequate protein helps carry antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds to the vessels. Seniors who combine improved protein intake with mineral support often notice less evening swelling, reduced tightness, and a more comfortable sensation in the lower legs, highlighting how protein balance works hand in hand with minerals to maintain vascular health. 5. It supports nervous system signaling for circulation. Protein is critical for neurotransmitter synthesis and nerve function. Circulation relies on the autonomic nervous system to adjust vessel tone and coordinate muscle contractions. Low protein limits neurotransmitter availability, subtly impairing nerve signaling that controls vascular relaxation. Even with adequate magnesium, vessels and muscles may not fully respond during the nightly reset. Blood flow slows, fluid pools, and legs feel heavy and restless. Restoring protein intake supports both vascular and neurological components of circulation, helping the body coordinate fluid redistribution overnight. Digging deeper, many neurotransmitters essential for vascular and muscular coordination, such as acetylcholine, dopamine, and norepinephrine, are derived from amino acids obtained from dietary protein. When protein intake is insufficient, the supply of these precursors drops. The autonomic nervous system becomes less effective at modulating vessel constriction and relaxation. Over time, this disruption in neural signaling creates a persistent state where fluid lingers in the lower legs, producing that characteristic evening heaviness and stiffness. Low protein also affects the production of nitric oxide, a critical signaling molecule that helps vessels relax in response to nerve input. Amino acids, such as arginine, are precursors for nitric oxide synthesis. Without sufficient nitric oxide, the smooth muscle lining blood vessels cannot fully relax, making circulation less responsive even when minerals like magnesium are abundant. This combination of neurological and vascular inefficiency amplifies nighttime fluid pooling, particularly in seniors whose compensatory systems are already declining with age. Low protein weakens these structures, slowing the speed and precision of nerve signals. As a result, the autonomic system's ability to coordinate timing between vessel dilation and muscle contraction is compromised. This is why seniors with suboptimal protein intake may notice legs that feel heavy, restless, or difficult to position at night, even if their mineral levels appear adequate. Restoring protein intake not only provides the raw materials for neurotransmitters, but also supports structural nerve integrity and signaling efficiency. Combined with adequate magnesium and potassium, seniors who address protein imbalance often notice lighter legs, reduced nighttime restlessness, less swelling, and an overall improvement in comfort and mobility by morning. How to support protein levels safely. Increasing high-quality protein intake is essential. Foods like eggs, Greek yogurt, chicken, fish, legumes, and tofu gradually restore albumin and muscle support. Spread intake throughout the day, including dinner, to optimize overnight circulation. Combining protein with magnesium-rich foods enhances vascular, muscular, and renal function simultaneously. Gentle exercise, especially calf activation, boosts circulation and reinforces protein's benefits. Hydration and balanced minerals remain important, but without sufficient protein, nighttime fluid retention continues. The body can only use a limited amount of protein per meal for synthesis, so splitting intake into multiple meals ensures a steady supply of amino acids for muscle repair, neurotransmitter production, and albumin synthesis. Consuming a protein source with moderate carbohydrates and magnesium-rich foods such as salmon with spinach, eggs with avocado, or Greek yogurt with pumpkin seeds provides synergistic support for vascular relaxation, kidney function, and neuromuscular coordination. Resistance and functional exercises complement dietary protein by stimulating muscle protein synthesis and preserving calf pump efficiency. Even light evening activity, like ankle flexes, calf raises, or short walks, reinforces the muscle's ability to assist venous return and prevent fluid pooling. Without water, even sufficient protein cannot fully prevent tissue congestion. Chronic stress and poor sleep impair protein utilization and increase inflammatory signaling, which can worsen tissue swelling. Prioritizing restorative sleep, managing stress through deep breathing or meditation, and limiting excessive alcohol intake all support protein metabolism and vascular health. Monitoring subtle improvements such as lighter legs in the evening, reduced ankle puffiness, or less stiffness in the calves provides tangible feedback that protein interventions are working. Finally, seniors should aim for a holistic approach, combining high-quality protein, balanced minerals, proper hydration, gentle movement, and stress management creates a synergistic effect that allows the body to optimize vascular, muscular, renal, and neurological support systems. Nighttime leg heaviness is not just discomfort. It can signal an overlooked protein imbalance. Minerals alone are not enough. If you're over 60, comment your age below. I read every response and want to know how many people experience this.